Hi everyone, welcome back to our program. I'm Laura Handke, Certified Transformational Voice Teacher. I help speakers and singers bring their inner authentic voice out into the world. And today we're going to be talking about a little issue that anyone who speaks or sings or performs in any way has to deal with at some point in their careers, in their lives. And that thing is performance anxiety. Now, I remember reading that both Carly Simon and Barbara Streisand have dealt with crippling performance anxiety for a huge bulk of their career. So if you're one of those people who get a little nervous when you have to get up and speak, don't worry about it. Believe me, you're in good company. And here today to help me address this issue of performance anxiety, stage fright, how we handle it, is certified hypnotist Katie Ramseur. Now, Katie is also the practitioner of a couple of very unique and innovative therapies that you will hear about later. And I just want to say, Katie, so much thank you for joining us and welcome to the show.
Thanks, Laura. It's really a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure having you. I have been really excited since you and I met about how our work in the world dovetails together to talk about this issue of performance anxiety and how speakers can really overcome that fear that we all have and get up and feel more comfortable and confident in speaking on stage, right?
Absolutely.
So part of the way that my work addresses this is the physical aspect of vocalization, of course. And, you know, as certified transformational voice teachers, we have a whole plethora of tools in the toolkit that help people address this issue of performance anxiety and how to properly breathe. But there's really only 3 that we can talk about today. So the 3 that I'm going to discuss today and the time that we have are, number 1, that deep belly breathing. Now, you know how important this is also as a hypnotist, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, that deep breathing is critical. And when people get up to speak, what a lot of them really don't understand is they've been breathing wrong for a good chunk of their lives. Now, this may sound silly, but people have a tendency to clench their bellies, especially when they're nervous, when they get up to speak. And that clenching of the abdominal wall is what really tightens you up and it makes your voice go away. So it's the last thing you want to do as a speaker. You want to learn how to relax that belly, breathe in through the nose, and then, which is point 2, which is to consciously speak on the breath. People don't think about it. But if you think about it, you can't inhale and talk at the same time now, can you? Of course not.
No.
So once you can learn to really get those ribs out, the belly relaxed, and learn to consciously speak on the breath, this is a huge thing as a speaker. You're breathing, which makes you more relaxed. The audience is going to be able to hear you at the back of the room because you're speaking on the breath with point 3, which is resonance. Now, you and I talked about this a little on the phone because I like to use the example of actor James Earl Jones, who has a very naturally resonant voice now, doesn't he? And I think he was probably just born that way. But the great thing is for the rest of us is that we can cultivate resonance. And as singers, as speakers, we call that speaking into the mask or the buzzy spot. Can you hear the difference in my voice? Like if I pull it back in my throat right now, I'm not very resonant, am I?
No.
But if I put right there in that mask and in that buzzy spot, see, that's something you can consciously cultivate as a speaker. And that way, people can hear you at the back of the room, and you're practicing this way at home, right? Rehearsing for that speech. You're standing up in your living room with your dog or whoever you're rehearsing with, and you're breathing. You're speaking on the breath with resonance, and all of these elements start to get into your muscle memory because you're rehearsing with proper technique. That makes you more confident, so when you get up on stage, you are naturally going to have an edge over that performance anxiety because you've been rehearsing. Your body is starting to know what to do and how to do it, and you're breathing, which calms you down. So that's the physical aspect of it, but you and I both know that's only one piece. The other piece is what's going on up here between your ears, right?
Yes.
And the way we talk to ourselves. So that is your area of expertise, and I want to bring you into this conversation now to talk about that subconscious as opposed to the physical element, and how you can help give tips and how your kind of work that you do can help combat performance anxiety.
Well, that's a great point because, of course, as you know, what I really do is I work with transforming the beliefs that people come in to see me with. And those beliefs are so attached with sometimes long, layers and layers of deep emotions. Some are related to being depressed or sad or self-critical or negative, and some people have chronic illness, many things. And so part of it is to be able to address through helping the person relax, go into that deep trance state. And there's 6 depths of trance states actually in hypnosis. Most people only reach about level 2 or 3. But even to get to that point of relaxation, to allow through suggestion, through metaphorical storytelling, enable them to actually shift how they're able to begin. How they're actually able to begin to change their belief and change the story in their mind, in their subconscious mind. So part of that is in relationship to public speaking is actually enabling them to inhabit your body, be in this present moment. Like right now, we are exactly in the present moment. We're completely focused on what we're talking about and allowing that real story to come out, whatever it is that person wants to say, allowing them to have that confidence that they can actually articulate all of that.
So if I understand correctly, what you're saying is that changing those subconscious belief systems helps bring a person where they're not in the past, they're not in the future, they're not worrying maybe?
Exactly.
And they are more emotionally present with exactly where they are right now, what they're doing and what they're speaking about. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, and that confidence starts to build. As soon as you have one experience, your brain is already stored. I gave a good speech yesterday. I got that one. That's good. All right, let's go for the next one.
Right.
That constant understanding of keeping that confidence level inside where that person is absolutely being able to trust and know that the message they already have inside of them can come outside and be articulated in a way that's fun, professional, in every single dimension of the talk.
So it sounds like it's almost a little bit like what I was saying about how when you rehearse and you're using these physical laws of proper vocalization, your body starts to remember, right? And you're saying it's the same thing really subconsciously and mentally, that you're starting to incorporate a different way of thinking about yourself.
You really are. You are in a bit of a zone, as we would call it. And once you enter that zone and allow yourself to remain there just by keeping the other things outside, you'll find that new things will come up right as you're talking. You know, something you've tangentially experienced 2 years ago will come into your talk. But it'll be spontaneous and it'll be genuine. And that's the power of authenticity, of course.
It is. And I understand exactly what you're talking about because I know that experience of being in that state when you're speaking. And I also know the experience of not being in that state when you're speaking. And there's a very big difference. So you had told me about one particular therapy model that you use and one particular client that you were able to help. Can you tell us a little bit about that particular story in the time that we have left?
Sure, absolutely. That pertains to something brand new in the United States called BWRT. It's actually the longer version is brain working recursive therapy.
Okay.
And BWRT was conceived about 4 years ago out of the UK by a brilliant therapist. And basically what it is in very short form is it allows you to short circuit our flight or flight response in the brain. So humans are very, as we all know, very prone to fear, anxiety, dread, things like that. Once we get into those states, it's very hard for us to stop. So if you take a thought that's very fearful and you absolutely stop that thought dead in its tracks, just as if frozen, and you take them to an entirely different state, if you're able to help them see in a completely different positive approach to how they're going to move forward, Actually, what happens is the brain begins to go completely in that direction. You're creating new neural pathways in your brain.
Cool.
And as a result of that, you're having a completely different sense of who you are, what you're planning to accomplish, and what's going to happen. So as a result, what might be in most cases 5 sessions of therapy for something like that might take 1 or 2 with BWRT.
Nice.
Now that's not always the case, but it is quite often the case. And I've worked with a few clients with performance and public speaking anxiety, and one of them actually, as a result of his public speaking performance, was able to double his income because he received a new job, a promotion.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds very effective. And we have just like a minute or so left here. And I guess what I would like to bring out with this is between the physical aspect of proper vocalization, like we talked about with my portion earlier,
yeah,
and this changing your mental aspect as well, which is actually changing your experience of yourself. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so you had mentioned something about when we talked earlier about the vagus nerve and about how deep breathing calms that. So this is really a mind, body, spirit approach is what it is. It's a comprehensive, because as you're breathing, it's affecting the body. And tell me just a little bit about that vagus nerve.
Yes, that vagus nerve is the longest nerve in the body.
Mm-hmm.
So as a result, what happens through that breathing in, as we've discussed, kind of the yoga breath, breathing in, breathing out. As a result of that, we are bringing such a deep state of relaxation in the body. Literally all the organs are getting the benefit of all that oxygen. I mean, many of your organs, let's say. And as a result, it starts from the base of your skull all the way down to the base of your spine. It allows you to relax. Every part of you allows you to relax.
And so this very much is a physiological thing. I mean, it's based on science. It's based on physiology.
Yes.
This is how our body responds and how we can change our experience when we're up on stage, which is a beautiful thing to know. I mean, it gives me, at least for me, it gives me a sense of relief and a sense of comfort to know I don't have to live with this awful, crippling performance anxiety. There are things that I can do about it. And between the work that I do and the work that Katie does, what I like to say is when you bring these elements together and you're speaking on the breath with resonance, on the breath very clearly to the back of the room, and you're rehearsing this way, and your mind has calmed down, and you're breathing, what you're really doing is you're taking your listeners along on the journey of the phrase. And that is a beautiful thing for us, and it's a beautiful thing for our audience. So in closing, Katie, how can people find more, how can they find out more about this kind of work? How can they get more information?
Well, they can definitely go to my website, which is innerpathwayhypnosis.com, and under the About tab, they'll be able to read about BWRT and they'll be able to look at a video.
Awesome. Well, again, Katie, thank you so much for joining me today. I am really excited about this work, bringing this to speakers who suffer from performance anxiety and no longer have to. So thanks again for joining us for our program today. I look forward to seeing you again next time.
I joined Toastmasters to improve my speaking, listening, communication, and leadership skills.
Toastmasters gave me incredible confidence.
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 Great listening skills.
Poise.
Great leadership skills.
Leadership skills.
The ability to speak in public.
Strength.
A captive audience.
Quality feedback from the more experienced Toastmasters.
Toastmasters really helped me improve my listening skills.
Sales skills.
Opportunities to go to different groups and widen my whole horizon.
Toastmasters has given me a more focused me, and I'm a much better listener. Toastmasters is fulfilling.
It's a great place to fail your way to success.
Wonderful way to meet people. Networking.
Strength.
It's addictive.
It's a club of self-improvement.
It's an experience, it's a ride that you won't forget, and you'll enjoy it every step of the way.
Toastmasters helped me land a kick-butt job.
I sang at one of my table topic speeches, and people liked it and applauded.
My business is doing great, and I'm very, very grateful to Toastmasters.
It's been a great experience for me.
Thank you, Toastmasters.
Thank you, Toastmasters.
Thank you, Toastmasters, for giving me so much confidence.
Thank you, Toastmasters, for
everything.
Hi, I'm James Wantz. I'm the current Public Relations Manager for District 7, but I'm also a member of 3 Toastmasters clubs. I've been involved in the district since about 2008, so I'm pretty familiar with the legacy educational system that we have. So when Pathways rolled out, I decided I wanted to dive in, because Pathways, well, it's brand new. It's something I hadn't encountered before. Now, many of us who have been in Toastmasters for a while, we know about the 2 tracks, the communications track and the leadership track, the competent communicator manual, the competent leadership manual, and they both lead forward and meet in the distinguished Toastmasters. But with Pathways, there were 10 different individual paths that I could choose from. 10, that's 5 times as many as the 2 tracks that I had previously. I'd heard a little bit about some of the projects that were inside of these tracks, and I immediately got excited when the ambassador at our spring conference started talking about all of these potential projects that we could do, electives like creating a podcast or writing a compelling blog or attending a networking event. Oh, okay, I didn't really like that one. I hate networking. Ugh. But the fact that I could do these projects, which hadn't been a part of Toastmasters, at least in my experience up to that point, kind of got me fired up for the new program. So when Pathways came out, I dove in. Now, I have a history of, well, theater. You may not be able to tell. I enjoy presentations, so I decided my first path was going to be presentation mastery, because I was going to dive into something new with something familiar. And so I went into Pathways for the very first time, looked at the project, started working through presentation mastery, and found a bunch of really cool nuggets, these golden nuggets embedded in the projects as I'm going. As I said, I've been a member since 2008, but I had yet to encounter within Toastmasters the idea that you could do a speech and then do the speech over again. I mean, I'd encountered it, yeah, other people had mentioned it, but now within Pathways, that's one of the first projects you do. You do a speech, you get evaluation on that speech, you then incorporate the evaluation into the speech, and you give the same speech again. I mean, it's mind-blowing. Because up until this point, at least a year for me in Toastmasters, I thought that once I gave a speech, it was gone. I couldn't do that speech again. Now, this comes from my theater background, because you do a performance and it's over. So I thought it was the same. You do a speech and it's over. But that's not really what happens. I mean, within our own professional lives and presentations and our work days, oftentimes I've encountered people that give presentations over and over and over and over. So now that has become an integral part of Pathways. And that's just one of those nuggets that I found. As I'm working through presentation mastery, I started to get the sneaking suspicion that I was cheating myself. I was cheating myself because I wasn't really challenging myself in all the areas that I could challenge myself. Yeah, networking. I hate it. But you know, there is a specific path that deals with networking, strategic relationships. I decided that if I was going to be a Pathways evangelist and talk about how good it was for helping people conquer communication and leadership in their own life, I needed to do something that was uncomfortable for me. So I signed up for the strategic relationships. And yes, I am going to attend networking events. I am going to find out about those strange things they call networking events. And then, as per the project in Pathways, I'm going to go back to my home club and report how scared I was at the time. Because stepping up in front of people to give a presentation doesn't bother me. I enjoy it. I know I'm weird in that way. But if you put me in a room where I have to network with people, it's just amazing. I challenge you. Figure out what you want to work on in your life, and then go to Toastmasters.org, look into Pathways, start figuring out one of those 10 individual paths that would challenge you. Or if you want, start with something familiar. But the key part of this whole thing is start into the Pathways journey, because you don't know what you're going to find, and I think you're going to really like it in the process. Toastmasters.org.
Hi, welcome back. Good to be with you again. My name is Bill Maher from New Horizons Toastmasters Club. For a few minutes this evening, we're going to talk to James Wantz, who is a member of the club, as well as in a district position. We're going to be talking a little bit about pathways, which is what Toastmasters International has formulated for people to excel in their teaching and leadership skills, similar to what we've done in the past. James, thank you for joining me this evening, and I hope we can talk a little bit about pathways.
Absolutely.
I saw you do a presentation just a couple of days ago, and I really appreciated a couple of the pictures that you had to describe the legacy, which was train tracks. We basically had a communications track and a leadership track, and that's very familiar for those of us who've been in Toastmasters for even a little while. But now Toastmasters is providing pathways, and you provided a picture of a ski area.
Actually, it was Mount Everest.
Mount Everest.
Now, there probably are people skiing on Mount Everest, but the reason I chose the image of Mount Everest is because there are many different ways to get to the summit. And in fact, that image had over 10 different paths that were shown to get to the summit. And I figured it was the best visual metaphor for pathways. Because in the new pathways, the new educational program, there are 10 individual paths that any member can choose one of those paths and proceed all the way through the 5 different levels.
Before we get to talking about the individual paths, I want to see if there's similarities between the legacy and the new pathways. And I've dived into pathways a little bit. When you start with the legacy system, you have the competent communicator, and then you get to the advanced manuals, and there's a lot of options with the advanced manuals. They've done away with, from what I understand, the competent communicator, and they've kind of folded that into all of the different pathways. Would that be an accurate description?
That is true. That is true. The Pathways program takes all of the pieces of the legacy educational program and folds them into the 10 individual paths, as well as liberally sprinkles in brand new content that we haven't seen before. So the icebreaker speech, which everybody is familiar with from the CC manual being the first project that they do, is still the first project in every single path. Because Toastmasters believes, and I also do too, that each time you do your icebreaker speech, you're learning something new about yourself. Whether it's your presentation, whether it's your, I don't know, how you're received maybe, so that the first speech is the same, and then people are going to recognize researching your topic, doing evaluations. All of those pieces are pulled in from the legacy program and are resident within Pathways.
How does one get started navigating pathways?
That is one of the biggest changes for Toastmasters so far. So the legacy program was designed around manuals, actual manuals that we would use and take to our clubs. Pathways is designed as a completely interactive online environment. It lives on Toastmasters International website, so you can go to it on your tablet, your computer, or your laptop for that matter. Once you log in, you choose the Pathways and the Pathways educational program, and it takes you to what is called Basecamp, which is every single member's beginning point with their path and how they interact with an online curriculum. It's set up very much like the online curriculums that you have with colleges. Where people go in, choose projects, have assignments, finish those projects, and then have them checked off within Basecamp. The difference is that the entire interaction is in an online environment as opposed to printed material. Now, I'm a bit of a throwback. I want hard copy. And there is an option within the projects. You can print out the entire manual in a PDF format, and that's what I do.
Okay.
I download the PDF, I print it out, I take the hard copy with me to my club meeting so that I've got my paper, I've got my evaluations, I know exactly what's going on. Because I like the tangible feel of the paper in that regard.
I agree with you on that, and it does have a sense of security with that. Another aspect of the legacy system that I think there has some similarities with the Pathways is I do 10 speeches and I get another level of leadership or communication. Here I'm working for badges. Is it still 10 speeches kind of a thing?
It's actually much faster. Because with the legacy system, you'd have to do those 10 speeches before you'd be a competent communicator. With pathways, you'd progress through 5 levels in each of the individual paths, and once you've completed a level, you receive the badge as a completion for that level. Well, level 1, which is the same for all paths, has 4 speeches and 1 evaluator role. So you give 4 speeches, you're serving as evaluator, and you've completed level 1 of your path. Level 2 then starts to take on unique characteristics of the individual path, and you start having specific projects that are related to which path you choose.
Great. Our time is just about up, and I thank you very much for your time in helping us begin to understand a larger picture of pathways. And I have started. I'm looking forward to it. I think it really is a good adjustment for Toastmasters as we begin the 21st century in a new dimension to Toastmasters International. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
If you have any information that you need regarding Toastmasters or pathways, go to toastmastersinternational.com, look for a Toastmasters Club, check out pathways, find out Basecamp, and we hope to see you along your journey. Thank you very much for joining us.